here in the United States, when you started school, what kind of student were you?
I was actually talking to this with my mom this morning. I came back from Connecticut in the morning, and I remember that when I was in second grade, I didn't know English. I just spoke Spanish, and so it's a little bit strange it's very strange not being accustomed to an environment. But it was very good because everyone was very nice. I just remember everyone being very friendly, and they were very helpful. The kids who spoke Spanish in my class, they would translate for me. Like, I didn't know what the hell the teacher was saying, pardon my language, but they would translate for me and they would help me out. I remember some assignments that I used to not do correctly just because I didn't know English. Like, for instance, alphabet order, we would get like 15 words or 20 words per week, and I don't even remember how many it was. And we would have to put them in alphabet order, but I didn't know how to do that. No one really told me how to do that. So what I would do, and I thought this was the correct way, was I would write the alphabet A, B, C, D, E, F, and I would do this for weeks. And I thought that was the assignment that I was supposed to do, until the teacher, my ESL teacher, sat down with me and was like, "No, this is what you do." And I got it immediately. I was a very good student, I would say. I always enjoyed learning. Social studies was my favorite course back in elementary school. Yeah, I would say I was a very good student. Though I took honors courses, AP courses. The difficult thing was that when it came time for junior and senior year, I knew that my options were limited because I was always aware that I undocumented. So I didn't really have these aspirations to go to private schools or to go to schools where tuition was like $40K per year, because my parents couldn't afford that. My parents couldn't afford it, and I wouldn't have received any financial aid. So even though if I had applied, maybe I would have been accepted, I just knew that it would be very unaffordable, and my parents couldn't pay for it. So that was out of the option. That was not an option. The great thing is that while I was in my senior year, I was looking into schools, and I found about a school here in New York, Baruch College, and I thought it was great. What I especially liked was that here in New York State, students like myself who were undocumented could enroll into these public schools and pay the in-state tuition rate, which was that was very helpful, and it's also one of the first and only states to have done that, where, for instance, in Connecticut, if I was undocumented, if I wanted to go to a state school, I would have had to pay out-of-state tuition. Up until last year, because last year the DREAM Act passed in Connecticut, and they allowed undocumented students who graduated from Connecticut high schools to enroll into public schools and pay in-state tuition.
So you could have easily settled at high school. What made you want to pursue a higher education?
I always wanted to learn, and I knew that education was a way to move forward, and it would provide opportunities. So I really wanted to learn. I was very ambitious, and I don't know, there was something in me, because I didn't really have much encouragement from my parents to go to school. They knew I was a good student, they sort of expected it from me. But I knew that this is something that I have to do personally for myself, and I knew that was the way to go if I wanted to have a good job. Even though in my situation I could have just gave up and said, well, this is it. I can't really do much after this. Even if I graduate with a degree, I'm not going to be able to work. I didn't think about that. I just thought about that it's so much better if you're enriching yourself via education, via reading books, even if those opportunities are not there or they're not immediately there.
What do you wish you could have done differently?
What I would have done differently is I wish I would have applied to other schools, applied to private schools, and I know this now because I'm working to pass the New York DREAM Act, and I'm very involved with undocumented students and helping them find educational opportunities. And there are private schools like Columbia, Princeton, that have awarded students even though they're undocumented, tuition assistance. So they give them scholarships even though they're undocumented, and it's private school, so it's a great thing that they have, especially because all of these schools are very unaffordable, and the government and the state can't provide funds for undocumented students to study. So it's great that institutions like Columbia, institutions like Princeton, and many others, Georgetown, has also given undocumented students scholarships to go to these schools.
So you mentioned that your brother was born in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
How was it like growing up knowing that your brother was legal and you weren't?
I would say that it's bittersweet. Like I mentioned, when I was growing up, I grew up in a basement, and then my parents moved out, and I grew up along with my siblings in an apartment, and now my parents were able to afford a house, so my parents bought a house, so my siblings have so many more opportunities that I was given. I know that when I was growing up, it was very difficult for our parents to buy us toys, so we didn't really have any new toys, like we didn't play Sega or Nintendo, so because the resources weren't there. But now that my parents, I'm very proud of my parents because they moved up a lot, considering the way that we came to this country. We basically had nothing. Everything that my parents did and established themselves, and now they have a house and they can provide for my siblings. You know, my siblings have a lot of more things more material things than I grew up with, and they also have a nice house, a nice neighborhood, and a nice backyard. And I would say it's bittersweet because I love my parents for that, but I just wish that my siblings, since they are American citizens, they would have tried harder in school, because I feel like they don't try, and they're taking it for granted, this opportunity that they have, where if they apply to good schools, they would get scholarships or financial aid, something that I wouldn't have had access to, but because they didn't have the grades that I had when I was going to high school, I just feel like they should try harder.
In your mentorship program, what exactly is your goal for the people like you that you work with?
Mm-hmm. It's great to work one-on-one. I had a student, and he was in the same situation that I was. He was undocumented. He was from the Dominican Republic, and he went to a New York high school. And so I mentored him in the transition from high school into college. And so I'm meeting up with him on Saturday. We're going to have lunch and catch up. And so I'm teaching him new words, kind of guiding him through the college process, what's to be expected, also in terms of career advice. I knew that I didn't have that growing up, that where my parents were like, oh, you should be this, you should be that. Well, they did, sort of. I wanted to be an architect for the longest time, and my parents would have loved me. My mom wanted me to be an artist, and so there was that encouragement from that side. But for instance, my student, he wants to be a psychologist. And so I want to connect him with people in that field. Like, for instance, my friend's a psychologist, so talking to my student, my friend, and then he could connect, and also giving him more opportunities about, like, okay, maybe this is a career path that you should pursue. What are your strengths in school? What do you like? What are the classes that you like that can shape the kind of person you are and could help you help you have a career, and also a major that would be good for you.
What are your goals and plans for the future?
I graduated from school. I graduated from Baruch College in 2009 with a finance degree. My immediate goals is enrolling into graduate school. So I want to go to graduate school, work on getting my master's. I haven't decided what I really want to do, but I love economics, so I would love to. Actually, Columbia is my dream school. Yeah, Columbia is my dream school. I would want to go to Columbia for economics. It's a very selective program, so I have to study for the GREs and do really well in the GREs, and then I can enroll, and hopefully they would accept me. If not that, I would want to be an epidemiologist. You guys know what that is? Yeah. Epidemiologist is it's sort of a scientist who studies diseases, the spread of diseases, does research into the prevention, how it can be contained, what are the factors that are causing this epidemic, because of the word epidemic. So I kind of want to do that. I'm not very scientific, but I like that. And you could use your research skills with economics and doing that. Or public policy. That's sort of the work that I'm doing right now, working towards the DREAM Act. We're trying to pass the New York State DREAM Act here in New York State. And so what that involves is you draft a bill and you present it to legislators because you think it's going to be, it's going to help not only the undocumented students but also New York State as a whole. So if you're investing in these students by giving them opportunities like access to financial aid, then they'll be able to one day have jobs that they wouldn't have had if the state hadn't helped them. So that's sort of what I want to do with public policy.